Gamer Zone. I'm Olivia Wills.
And I'm David Sigmund. Today, Meredith O'Donnell is out on vacation. Vacationing in Missouri, who goes there? Game news. Fusion Frenzy was one of my favorite titles for the Xbox. And I was a little disappointed in the lack of marketing that was really done on it. And honestly, I thought it was one of the best games out there for the Xbox, given that I'm not particularly a Halo fan. Well, there's going to be Fusion Frenzy 2. I am seriously excited about it. Look for it. It's coming out sometime around the holiday season.
There's a summer movie contest coming up for WoW gamers. It's between Blizzard and Xfire that are doing it. And it's for all those mod people that like to put movies together in WoW. And they're going to have 4 different categories, and there's going to be over $23,000 of prizes. So for all you people out there that like to put the movies together, entries are due by September 15th, 2006.
Definitely hit the website to get some of the more of the details. You can find it at blizzard.com, of course. Given how many little movie clips and things like that we've seen on YouTube about World of Warcraft along with other games, it'll be kind of interesting to see, with $23,000 in prizes to deal with, what are people going to do when they got something at stake now? This will be kind of fun to see. Speaking of World of Warcraft, because it can't be an episode of World of Gamer Zone without mentioning it at least once, Blizzard just got through recently banning 59,000 accounts, taking about 22 million gold out of the World of Warcraft economy. The reason for banning is cheating, and the biggest thing is selling gold online, buying gold online.
For real cash. I mean, what is the point? It's a fantasy-based game. Go in, earn your own gold. It's not that hard. Stop buying it. You're paying $15 a month. That's all you need to pay.
I gotta agree. I've never bought gold, though oddly enough, I know a whole bunch of people have done it. But I've never seen the reason for doing it, because it takes all the fun out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like finding the cheat codes for a game. Why do it? You're taking all the good stuff out of it.
I can almost understand the reasoning behind the items, but not for the gold.
Final Fantasy XI Online, they also just got through banning about 2,000 players for quote-unquote the use of third-party software tools. That usually means cheating. But it's interesting to see a lot of these groups actually do things like react to players that are causing imbalances in their games. And I hope they continue monitoring and doing these sort of things.
Dayton Technology Design High School is encouraging their students to design and develop their own web games.
I find this to be a very interesting trend, and actually here in Wichita, I'd heard rumblings about them doing something like this. Considering the amount of creativity and the amount of work that's put into a game, I think it's a really valid way for kids to find a creative focus and a creative outlet for a lot of this stuff. Because let's face it, to build a game, you've got all the artwork that's got to go into it. You've got all the programming, the design, the concepts, the testing.
The themings, the game, you got to have the backstory, the plot. And I'm so relieved to finally hearing that, gaming can be constructive instead of deconstructive or destructive.
I thought it was constructive all the time.
Yeah, you would.
I've learned my Twitch skills over the years, and
whatever.
And finally, the saga is over. WebZen has already pulled the plug on Endless Saga before it actually ever got out. WebZen, for those that don't know, actually has done a couple of titles. There's the Soul of the Nation that's actually already released in Korea, though not here in the U.S. market yet. Mu Online, released in Korea and released in the U.S.
Yeah.
But also they have APB, Huxley, and their American release of Soul of the Ultimate Nation that they're also still have in development. I'm really hoping that Huxley makes it through, because Huxley was kind of an interesting premise. It's a first-person shooter MMO, which makes it quite a bit different than a lot of the stuff that's out there. And I always like different.
But from what you were telling me about APB, about it kind of being like a cops and robbers game, I really hope they come with that, because that would be something really interesting.
And now for our review segment. Today we're going to do something a little different. See, originally we wanted to review Superman Returns, because it was a movie tie-in. Trailer looks awesome.
Yep.
Looks like it's going to be a great game.
Plus it was supposed to be out by now.
Exactly. And when I went to the store and it wasn't out, I decided to spend my money elsewhere. I had a couple of movie tie-in games that I had always been eyeballing. Being involved in Gamer Zone, I do play some games. I don't play nearly as many as I would expect to. Because of the show here, I've actually had to seek out and start playing a lot of other stuff. And I decided to pick up Path of Neo and From Russia with Love to throw them on for reviews. And we'll see how they stand up. First up, though, let's talk a little bit about our review process. We break down our reviews into 4 categories: graphics, sound, gameplay, and value. Note that on this one, we're going to do the value based off of current street price, not the original street price. We're going to start with From Russia with Love. From Russia with Love is a remake, a video game remake, of the old James Bond movie, From Russia with Love. One of the first unique things about this, they got Sean Connery actually doing the voices for his old character. Basically, 20 years removed, he's now doing the same character again. It's kind of cool.
And being that I think Sean Connery is hot anyway, which most any girls doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how old he gets, the accent just takes it all away. It was, I just like it. It's nice to have him back.
Horrible woman.
Yes, she's had her kicks.
The premise is basically they took the old movie and they filled in areas that wasn't there before. Instead, this is not a 2-hour game that you play and run through in a linear fashion just like the original movie was. Instead, yes, it's still linear, but they filled in all of these little gaps and voids in it. Basically, they gave it plenty of room for gameplay. And we'll see how that holds up here shortly. For graphics, we gave it an 8.5. The graphics are good, they're slick, they're not outstanding though. Yeah. There's nothing here that makes me just go, wow.
Yeah, makes you stop in your tracks and just have to reevaluate, but no.
On the flip side, the things they did, they captured the spirit and the style of the original movies so well.
And I totally have to agree with that. And they introduced some new characters.
Which actually, the new characters are the only glaring part I had out of that, because the new characters, the hairstyles don't quite match, a couple of little things like that.
Like the intro scenes when you're heading in to play the game, and it's like the intro to the movie, and they use the characters and they use parts from the movie to introduce the characters, and then the new characters come up, and you can definitely tell that the space-time of which they were filmed.
Yeah.
So.
And there's actually no footage from the movie directly used. It's all, anything that's in there for sequences aren't pre-rendered. They're actually done in the engine. It looks pretty good, and it makes a good seamless quality. Sound, we gave it an 8.5. They did fairly well with emulating the old music style. Some of the tunes actually are the old, and of course the classic James Bond theme is in there. Voice work, Sean Connery does an excellent job doing his old work.
Yes, he does.
In fact, I had read somebody else's comment about how he was dry about it, but honestly, I thought it sounded excellent.
I thought he sounded like the James Bond we know from his era. When Sean Connery did James Bond, he sounded like James Bond. So.
Exactly. And they did a really good job of capturing it. A lot of the voice work in it is excellent from everybody else, too. There's no really, what I consider really bad performances of voice work. Yeah. And it's very important, though, in this game because there's a ton of dialogue. Had they done badly on it,
it would have ruined the game.
Yes, it would have. On the flip side, there are plenty of spots where it gets a little hard to hear some of the characters.
You have to lean towards the TV or turn the TV way up, and then you skip to the next part where it's really loud gunfire or fighting, and you have to reach up and hurry up and turn the sound down so you don't blast your eardrums out.
It really could have stood to have some normalization done between the two different sound levels, especially because, you know, gunshots are like
yes,
way loud after some of the cutscenes.
Yes.
Otherwise, the sounds have the feel of the movie, which was the important part. And that was the part I thought they had to capture, and they managed to nail it. Gameplay, we gave it a 7.5. It has some interesting quirks with its menu system. I didn't care for the menus. They're hard to navigate. Game style itself is a third-person shooter. Basically, you're standing looking over the shoulder of James Bond, giving it kind of a movie feel to it. The camera controls, you had mentioned it, and
they made me a little dizzy.
Yeah.
Truthfully, I had to stop. I had to stop about 20 minutes in and just give my body, mind, and eye time to just kind of catch up and readjust, because it's not the type of gameplay I'm used to playing. So, whew.
And the camera at moments has its frustrating points where the camera doesn't automatically follow through the way it should.
Or there's some points it won't let you follow when before it was letting you switch camera angles, and then all of a sudden it will just freeze and it won't let you do it. That didn't make me too happy. No,
absolutely. When it comes to sitting down and going after the opponents, I really liked one of the things they did here. There's two ways to take on an opponent. Mm-hmm. One is if you pick up the gun and you're shooting at the guy, you pull the trigger and you lock on him, and then you fire. Well, it's cool because, one, the ring shows how much health the guy has. It starts out at green, yellow, red, and then the guy falls over dead. Mm-hmm. But if you want a little bit finer control, for instance, the classic movie things where the guys are sliding down a rope and James Bond shoots the rope out, mm-hmm. you can do it. They have a second targeting mode where you pull it in and it shows little specific points, and you can fine-tune your aim on those points.
Called Bond Focus.
Exactly. It's very nice because you can pretty much pick up the combat controls regardless of whether or not you're a first-person shooter or third-person shooter expert. But at the same time, as you get more confidence in it, you can pick it off and do a lot more with it.
Hey, Davis. Did I mention, though, I hated the car driving. Absolutely.
I think you only mentioned that 16 times while we were looking at doing the review.
But I hated the car driving.
Oddly enough, I thought the car driving was a bit glaring in this. It's not that it shouldn't have road chases. It should. It's a James Bond movie.
James Bond. But the controls, you couldn't slow down without hitting the emergency brake, and you couldn't negotiate the turns without doing a spin out and having to go back to the repair garage 2 or 3 times.
I also absolutely hated the car scenes because there's one of them that there's a mission that you have to destroy. I think it's 16 cars. Why? What exactly in the movie plot line would this have advanced anything? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Mr. Bond, you're going to have to go out and destroy 16 cars. I don't remember that line in there anywhere. And yes, I understand they expanded on gameplay, but this didn't make any sense. Also, there's some great upsides in it. The way the missions work for mission difficulty, when you start the game and you run a mission, it allows you to select
Operative Agent, 00 Agent.
Gotcha. The cool part is, it's not like you select this at the beginning of the game and you're stuck at this level. As a matter of fact, if you're stuck, have been playing at Double Agent and decide you need to back up a little bit and play this one on Agent, you can. At the beginning of each scenario, you're allowed to pick the difficulty level for that particular scenario. It also means you can go back and redo the same scenario a couple of times until you get exactly the result you want. I also really liked some of the other little concepts, but they didn't execute too well. One of them is James Bond moments, okay? You'll find a little icon, a little 007 icon that shows up when you've done it. The cool thing about these is some of these are really cool moments that look just like out of the movies. One of them, for instance, is rappelling, smashing through the window, and knocking the guy out. Another one was finding a room. Huh? I walked into a room. That's a James Bond moment. It wasn't like there was enemies here or anything special going on. I just walked in the room. It was a James Bond moment. I don't get it. It's a little annoying to have points like that in the game when they've done so well at other points. Moving on to value, we gave the value, again, factored off of today's street price of about $20, an 8.25. It's worth it. One of the things that gave it a couple more points over the other one that we reviewed was the fact that there's also multiplayer in here. Basically, you can take all the James Bond toys and you and a couple of friends can go at it.
Have fun, yeah.
It's nothing special, it's nothing great, but it's nice to have in there. It has a okay replay value where you can go back through and play each one of the scenarios however different ways you want to.
Yeah.
But it's not awesome. That gives From Russia with Love a grand total of an 8.2.
Stick around, we'll be right back.
Forget punching monkeys. Forget boring banner ads. Forget pop-up windows. Your customers have already forgotten. Let Midnight Rider Productions move you into the future of internet advertising. We provide placement in our existing product lineup for advertisements, production services for online video advertising, and for cable and television advertising. Don't let your customers forget you. Remember Midnight Rider Productions.
Welcome back to the World of Gamer Zone.
By now, you probably already know, but we'll mention it again. World of Gamer Zone is actually shot down at Gamer Zone Centers. It's at 817 West Douglas in Wichita, Kansas, down in the Delano District. If you're wondering what is Gamer Zone, well, it's a gaming center. People come in, sit down, play games. We've got Xboxes and PCs and all that good stuff. We're open from 2 o'clock in the afternoon till 4 a.m. every day, unless we happen to have more people, and, well, then we stay open later. Sometimes it's late, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning isn't uncommon because it's a gaming center and people play till late in the night. So come on down, check it out. We'll see you here. Path of Neo. Wow. Okay. Previously, we had Enter the Matrix, which was done by the Wachowski brothers. And I can find very few games that I dislike more than Enter the Matrix because of sheer disappointment. The premise is basically you get to play Neo. Instead of this being about one of the movies, it's the course of all 3 of the movies from beginning to end. In fact, it starts with the red pill and the blue pill. Well, that's a cool concept. Hey, what happens if I take the blue pill? Nothing. Game stopped right there. It was really cheesy. The next scene, you get to do the office, sliding through the office.
That kind of drove me nuts. I mean, I know it was an important part of the movie and probably part of the gameplay, but it was just a little too slow moving for me.
You get to track through all of the movies. The path of Neo, the concept's basically selling you on that you get to do it your way. Mm-hmm. I don't know about that. We'll get into that later. Graphics, we give it a 7.5. Okay, here's the issues I've got with it right off. Some of the graphics are just excellent. Mm-hmm. In fact, if you hit pause in the game, it turns everything into the Matrix effect. It looks really slick and very neat.
I really do like that.
But there's poor frame rate throughout the entire game. This game, From Russia with Love, runs fully at 30 frames a second all the time. It looks like you're watching the movies. Path of Neo looks like something is wrong with the movie because it's just stuttery all the time.
It'll stop and have to load in the middle of a conversation.
Oh my God.
Drove me nuts.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's so annoying to have the loading screens in such inappropriate times. In fact, I'll tell you how bad it was. I had thrown the game in, played for a while, and went, obviously there's something wrong with my Xbox. I grabbed another Xbox, I threw the game in there. No, the game really is this stuttery. Now, when it comes to the style and capturing the feel of it, they did pretty good.
It did very good.
The slow-mo combat moves was one of your favorites that you had mentioned a couple of times.
You hit the right combination of buttons, and from a time when I'm a Mortal Kombat lover, and if you learn, I can't help it. I know, call me a dork. But
dork.
Still. But when you hit the right combination of buttons and he just goes into super attack mode and it just slows it down and shows every slice and dice or kick that he does and then speeds it back up into real time. I love that.
It really does capture that little aspect and feel of the movies very well. Sound, gave it an 8.0. It emulates the sounds of the movies pretty well. When it came to voice acting, it's pretty good stuff. It wasn't excellent, though they did get Lawrence Fishburne to redo part of his role. Though you don't have
you don't have Keanu Reeves, but You know,
or Kate Moss or any of those.
But you know what? That's fine by me because Keanu Reeves, not one of my favorite actors, did a good job, I think, in Neo.
Whoa.
But, whoa, yeah, dude. But Lawrence Fishburne, love his voice, so he can react all he wants.
Most of the sounds are appropriate. And honestly, I think I had less issues with the volume levels between voices and stuff going on in this game than I did with From Russia with Love. Now, the downsides to some of the sound, it seemed like they could have done a little bit more sound effects work here and there.
Yeah.
Too much of the sound is repetitive over and over and over and over and over because you're going to hear the same stuff all the time.
You hear the same thing when they're fighting and using the samurai swords, or when he's in the burning village or whatever.
The same grunt over and over when you do attacks. It gets old, and to me, they went this far as to get good people to do the voice acting. They should have followed it up with something better. I am going to backtrack and add one more thing to graphics. While From Russia with Love didn't use pre-rendered sequences or cuts from the movie, they actually did use cuts from the movie in this one. They kind of remixed them, not necessarily through the same continuous timeline.
Yeah, they mixed them all up from different shots, different points of the movie. They have shots from the end of the movie with shots from the beginning of the movie. But I mean, each point you see, though, you're like, oh, I recognize that, and you can pull that tidbit out and realize that. So
it was an interesting time compressed version of the movie, and even though, as you mentioned, they take stuff from the end of the movie and they put it in here, it's not like it was destroying the logical flow of it either. It did a pretty good job, and actually, I think the person who did the work on re-editing that did a better job on graphics than the actual guys who did the graphics in game. Now, gameplay.
You're harsh.
Yeah, well, gameplay, we gave it a 6.75. Now, you talk about harsh, that's harsh.
That's harsh. And
Why?
that came from you, because I like most of the gameplay.
Well, I was going to give it a 6. So, why? Why such a bad score? Okay, to start off with, this game feels like it was actually programmed by multiple teams. You start out in a very linear fashion, and then suddenly you're set into this, select your mission type mode.
Yeah.
Well, it's a bit jarring. Either it needs to be one or the other. 2, they got lazy with the whole path portion where you can select your own path. They got really lazy with it because you can do, nothing for your own path. As a matter of fact, they give you this whole thing where you can pick your own abilities.
Oh, that drove me nuts. So with the little circle thing on the menu?
It's worthless. It's absolutely, in fact, the first time you're presented with it, you're going to go, what in the world is this? What can I do? And spend 5 minutes trying to figure it out because there's actually no directions, no instructions about it, unless you pick up the manual from the game book.
Yeah.
Not that we'd ever look at that. But
what's the point?
essentially they show it to you and there's nothing you can do with it. The next time around, you finally get your first point that you can spend, and you discover, disappointingly, that there's only a couple spots you can spend it. In fact, I went a long ways into this, and I still never got the abilities I wanted to pick up. During one of the missions, I picked one of the abilities that only gets used during that mission. Get towards the end of the mission, that ability never kicked in. Why? I don't know. I don't know if it's a bug in the game or a design choice, but truthfully, it was annoying as heck. Why have these ability trees if they're not going to really factor into the game that much? I also did like their combat system. It is fun. In fact, it's the best part of the game, is just to find the room with the most guys in it and go at it.
Yes.
Value, we gave it an 8, based again on the current street price of about 20 bucks. Honestly, it's worth picking up and playing. I gotta admit, if I had picked it up at $50, I probably would have stuffed it in an envelope, mailed it back to the developers with an extremely nasty note.
I was about to say, watched it.
I've yet to curse on TV. Thank you very much. But honestly, at 20 bucks, you can't go wrong. At 50 bucks, man, that would have been bad. But I will
not have been a happy camper.
No. I will say this, though. Of the two, if I had to pick one and only one, I would definitely pick From Russia with Love.
I would have to agree with that.
It's a much slicker game, and it's amazing if you sit down and you play both of these games back to back, which we just did. It's amazing to see the difference in approach between the two.
Yes.
From Russia with Love was a complete emulation of the original style and the original movie. Path of Neo was an attempt to extend upon it, including things like a new alternate ending written by the actual Wachowski brothers. Stay out of games, guys. Really, that's my suggestion. This is 2 now. You've now done well on both of them. For total value, we gave Path of Neo a 7.5. Now, if you're wondering why would we pick a couple of movie tie-in games to throw in there, partially it's whim, partially it's an idea to see how are the different approaches and contrast the different approaches that some game developers are using to pick up movie tie-ins. Movie tie-in games have classically been some of the worst games ever produced in video games.
Sad but true.
It is, especially when you have something that has such a visual tapestry to work from already. There's plenty of background. It's not like you have to write a storyline for this. It's already written. In fact, in my opinion, writing a video game tie-in should be pretty much a no-brainer in a lot of ways. But classically, they've been horrible.
But why do you think that? Why do you think that is, though? Because because there's always such a following. Because we see the movie, we know how it is, and then we get to the game, and it doesn't quite follow the reasoning or the plotting that we think it should.
2 words: money and time. Developers usually only have a certain amount of time between when the idea of, hey, this movie's going to be coming out, say 2007, like Transformers is going to be, and a developer says, hey, we need a game to go with it. Transformers, for instance, they're going to do this game in about 12 months. Good luck with that.
Yes.
The other thing is, movie tie-ins are usually just a cash-in sort of thing.
Yeah.
Basically, all they're trying to do is produce another marketing tie-in that quickly makes money back. And because of that, the quality slips. In fact, studios that typically do great games, Shiny Entertainment in this one. Typically, they'll do great games, can pump out some titles that are absolutely horrible when they're a movie tie-in. And that's a wrap for our show today. If you've got any questions, hit the World of Gamer Zone website at worldofgamerzone.com.
We'll see you next time.